Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stories with H.G. Flitcher. It's been a while, hasn't it? I mean, I don't even know how long, maybe weeks or a month. I've been so busy just reorganizing myself, getting back to my original writing endurance and reading. I started reading The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub, which is amazing so far. I read before that the first book of The Witcher, entitled The Last Wish, which was really good. I hadn't read that kind of fantasy, and it was good for having a change of pace. I've also been just making new decisions to refocus myself on my passion for fiction writing, and here we are. Let's let the catching up be in the background and focus on the story of the day and maybe even the week. I don't know how many videos I'm going to do this week, so let's just focus on today, eh? Alright, so by the title you can tell that this story is about the passing of my grandmother, which happened in the same year that my mother passed away. We went to Cairo, Egypt, where our family is, or most of our relatives, as a way of grieving together as a family in the heat of the moment. My dad always believed in having a reason and a purpose for seeing family. It's not a regular thing that we do anymore, especially because we're all grown up and, you know, as adults, my sister and I have our own lives, and if we ever do a family thing like that together, there has to be a purpose for it, meaning a legitimate reason for us to go there. Not that we are careless or don't care about our family. It's just so hard to find the right time where we can all go, especially because we have a dog, so someone has to babysit him. Anyway, I chose this story because there is a slight connection to book 1 of Boone and Jack. So I'll mention the tethering of the stories at the end. So let's start with the first morning of our visit, which was at my grandmother's home, which is where my father and all his siblings were raised. So it was 10 minutes into seeing my grandmother, and she was at the point in terms of approaching the end of her life where she was really not there consciously. She had never spoken in Greek in years, decades even, but on this day she was calling out to her mother in Greek. I think it was something like Uma or something. I don't know how to say mother in Greek, but she was calling out to her as if she was like looking to the stars and calling for her mother, saying, "I'm coming. I'm ready to, you know, go into the afterlife." So, I mean, obviously I didn't know that. Someone had to explain it to me because I don't speak Greek, let alone the Egyptian dialect of Arabic. Anyway, so she was there with her living care assistant, which is not something that's really normal in Egypt unless it's absolutely necessary, which it was for her because she was really losing a sense of self at the age of I think 92. I think she was 94 when she passed away. Anyway, so we're all there. I think it was me, my sister, my dad, some of his brothers and sisters and sister, and yeah, I think that's it. Maybe some of my cousins. I don't quite remember. It was like 7 years ago, so my memory's not that fresh on it, but I'll do my best here. Okay, so my dad's younger brother and his sister carried or helped my grandmother to the bathroom because she had to go pee. And so we didn't really think much of it. We thought it was routine. So they walked her to the bathroom. And I think, yeah, my dad's sister went in with in the bathroom with her to make sure she didn't, hurt herself or fall. So she does her business, and then they, walk her out of the bathroom after she washes her hands. And being in the living room, we can't really see everything. But I heard a thump. She had collapsed in their arms. Just like that. Just like a sack of potatoes. And that's a really strange image, but that's what it sounded like. So there's a bit of, and shocking and all this stuff going on. So we get up, my sister and I, from our chairs to see what's happening, and so did my dad. And then I just see my dad's brother and sister carrying my grandmother, or our grandmother, to her bedroom. My dad goes quickly, and he comes back from the room, and I start hearing a bit of crying from his sister, and then I see tears in his eyes when he comes back into the living room and tells us that she had passed away. But because they have to make sure that that is the truth, they start making all these phone calls. First one being the doctor, and I think an assistant. Okay, and then as those people arrive, my dad's brother is making other phone calls. I think he was making phone calls to the coroner and another helper, a priest and another helper. So my sister and I were sitting there, and we're just listening to all of this action going on, and we don't really know what to think, so we're just kind of, observing the culture of the situation. So a few minutes later, doctor comes in, goes into the room, announces the time of death of my grandmother, and then they put a sheet over her. A few more minutes later, a priest and one of his sermons, I guess, come in and go into the room, say a few prayers. Then a coroner comes in, takes the body onto a little makeshift gurney, and I kid you not, it was kind of frightening, and yet oh my god, why is this happening so fast? They take the body from her bedroom right in front of us in the living room, and then just carry it out of the door. And we're like, Dad, what's going on? He's like, don't ask questions, just follow along with what's happening. So we're all piling into cars and following the coroner to his vehicle, which had the coffin in it, and they just put the body inside and close the lid, close the tailgate, and then we're told, quickly, go into your cars. You gotta follow us right now. So we're 2 cars, I think, 2 to 3 cars, following a coroner for maybe an hour or two in heavy traffic and all the honking and looking at all these, apartment buildings are full of dust and like billions satellites on the roof. And then we stop an hour or two later at an ancestral burial ground, because in Egypt you can't really bury a body because there's no soil, it's just all sand. So you have these mausoleums, and in the mausoleums there is an underground part where they put the coffin in, and then someone is supposed to be waiting there with a concrete mixture to seal up the bottom of that mausoleum so that grave robbers don't take any of the possessions that are in the coffin with the deceased. So we're there for maybe 20 minutes to half an hour, where the priest had come with us, including the coroner and all these people. And there's final prayers being said, tears being shared, and there's the person in charge of making the concrete mixture and then sealing up that lid so that the grave robbers don't take any possessions. And then apparently, because this happens so often, because of such a high population and so much poverty, they actually do this in rotation, meaning they break open the lid, and when it's time for the next person in the ancestral home or mausoleum to be put into the coffin, they just cremate the body, because there's such a high volume of death in terms of the elderly that you just have to keep reusing the same space, basically. That is essentially what happened. But what was such a culture shock to me and my sister, at least for me in terms of what I remember, is just how quickly things were happening. I mean, it took less than 4 hours for this to happen. That would never happen in Canada. I mean, when my mom passed away, I think it was like a week or two before they moved the body and we were able to register a spot for the funeral. In Egypt, not only is there no real funeral, there's a memorial service, but there's no funeral. I've never been to one. Maybe there is, I don't quite remember, but I just remember things happening not just quickly, but right in front of your eyes. I mean, could you imagine seeing the deceased body of one of your relatives right in front of you being carried out like it's nothing? I mean, that memory's burnt into my head. Not just because there was 3 funerals in the same year that my mom passed away, the third one being my sister's godmother's husband, sorry. But it was just such a shock. Okay, so that's the story. As to how it tethers in to my writing, when one of Boone's relatives dies in book 1, it was such a quick process in terms of how things happened. So when the father dies, it was a freak accident. Yeah, I just spoiled it for you. But I'm not going to tell you how it happened. Oops. Anyway, when that happens, Boone is kind of by himself emotionally in terms of grieving. Other than Jack, but Jack had never lost a parent, so he didn't really know how to comfort Boone. So Boone was kind of by himself emotionally, trying to piece himself together as a kid. Anyway, the grieving part that Boone had to go to at this time was so, how can I say this? It's almost like he just had flashes of images going through his head because of how alone he was in terms of getting through this situation that he had never dreamed of encountering. So that's where I got the idea from, because when I was watching this happen in front of me with my grandmother, I was like, I don't even have time to process this. That's why I wasn't crying, because there was no time to grieve. There was just action after action after action, which is how the grieving and the father's death and the funeral happened so quickly in Boone and Jack 1. So that's where it came from. Oh my god. That was a real thrill ride even for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know when I'm going to do the next one, but have a good week and see you later.